How's it going, everybody? It's the CDH Warrior coming at you with another episode of CDH. We survived this? Now what? Continuing with our relationship series. This week is going to be a continuation of last week and the answers to the question from last week. So, let's roll the title. So the question from last week was simply this. When do you tell a spouse about CDH? And last week was kind of an introduction to this question, and this week is kind of the answer to the question. I got several different responses. I'm not going to add those into the video. I'm just going to kind of explain them. So one of the answers I got was, at the beginning of the relationship, you should lay everything out on the table. And I kind of agree with that. However, I've had that backfire on me a couple of times. I'm going to kind of pull the comments that I had from last week, actually 2 weeks ago. I posed this question. And one of the comments I got was telling at the very beginning of a relationship, at the beginning of dating. More or less when you feel comfortable enough with the person to consider that you are in a dating relationship. My mistake tends to be that I tell at the beginning, I mean, even before we're fully comfortable, hey, I have CDH. And that frightens people. But it's the only way I know how to just be outright transparent. I'd rather have them be scared of me. I know that sounds horrible, but I'd rather them be scared of me and be honest at the beginning than be 3-4 months into the relationship and, oh, I'm not comfortable with this, and just leave. Because I've had that happen as well. My experience with relationships have always been weird. I touched a bit on the growing up with CDH series where I did CDH in high school. Kind of touching on my past relationships and what happened with those. I frequently had issues with people. Either they'd act like it was okay to be a couple, and then go behind your back and find somebody else, or exactly as I stated, I'd tell them up front, it scared them, and I'd never hear from them again. But that's just what I have to deal with. I don't really know how to explain some of this from my perspective. I've been in oddball relationships before. Either I've gotten to the point that we're close to dating, and when I state close to dating, we had kind of agreed we were willing and ready to go out, but life got in the way. I think most people can understand that issue, especially if you're older. More so college and workplace age than high school age. Because that comment coming up in high school age is just kind of weird. But I make no bones about my issues with CDH and relationships. I'm going to be bluntly honest. I know later in this series we're going to kind of get into things like intimacy, and that is a very interesting topic. That's not something, like I said, that's not something when I first started this series, that's not something that I want to start out with. Here we are, basically, I think 4 episodes into this. No, 2. That would be episode 4. This is episode 3. In the course of my life, I've had difficulty with relationships. I've had difficulties trying to express much of anything. And it's one... We're going to get into this more when we get into the intimacy question in probably 2 weeks. I don't want to jump on it yet, but next week we're going to discuss what kind of relationship you really want. I'll give you my honest perspective of what I want out of a relationship. This is not a dating video, if that's the idea. This is just kind of a discussion about relationships in general. And the question of making a list. This is going to sound horrible the way I'm going to put this out, but make a list of what you want out of a relationship before you start trying to date. I have pretty much always had the same view on relationships. Good grief, since I was a teenager. Really, since I was about 15, 16 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted out of a relationship. But that's not so much the end goal. That's just kind of a, where do we start? So, I've gotten slightly off topic here, because our discussion was about when to tell a spouse or partner about your CDH. In my discussion, my input was basically, I'd like to tell at the beginning, so that way I don't get heartbroken. I know that sounds... There's a part of me that seems like a hopeless romantic, but in a kind of a good way. And yes, I kind of fall into that category. But that is a good thing, to kind of be a hopeless romantic. There is a bad side to being a hopeless romantic, and that's when you have such high expectations of a relationship and what you're going to get out of it, that you don't actually pay attention to the relationship. You just pay attention to what you're trying to get out of it. And in my opinion, if you're doing that, you're really not getting anywhere. You're really not going to get much of anywhere in a relationship if you're just doing that in a relationship, just looking for what you can get out of it. Questions are also, what do you bring to a relationship? And I'm not talking about a monetary kind of thing. With relationships, it is basically a 50-50 partnership. A lot of people, I'll be honest, there are a lot of people that do not see that. And I've had friends here in Knoxville that don't see it that way, but that's a story for a whole different time. We're not even going to try and touch that for at least a year. But it's one, you need to look at a relationship as a partnership between two people. What do you get out of a relationship? What do you want out of a relationship? And I think next week I'll kind of give a better explanation of how to write this out, how to list it out, how to deal with things in a more realistic manner. I'll have to go to a different room to do this because I think I want a whiteboard for you all to see. And it's one I want you all to see how you have to write this list out, how this list needs to be worked on. I'm at an age, I'm 28. I mostly know what I want out of a relationship, and that's okay that I don't fully know. I'm still trying to sort things out. It's sad that I'm almost 30 and still trying to figure this out, but when you've lived with health issues, you kind of end up behind the curve forever. That's not necessarily a bad thing because you get to watch everyone else. I don't mean this in a mean way, but you get to watch everyone else's mistakes and learn what not to do. But back to the kind of the topic at hand. And we kind of got off topic, but kind of stayed on topic. Is when do you tell a spouse? Obviously, you do not want to tell them you have CDH in the middle of a relationship, or they've proposed to you and you have to explain that. That's going to be an awkward conversation for anyone, regardless of what's happened or how well you all know each other before. Part of the reason for these videos is kind of to be a guide for those that are living with CDH that are younger than me. Like, a lot younger, like early teenager. And I'm not telling a teenager, a 13, 14-year-old, hey, you need to figure out what you want out of a relationship right now. That's not the goal. The reason why I'm posing these questions, and specifically why I posed the question today about when to tell a partner or spouse, is, and later on down the line we'll have the discussion about we'll have the intimacy question, and it will actually make more sense. Next week is probably going to be about our halfway point in this discussion of series, or in this series as a discussion. So I've kind of run out of stuff to say. I think next week I'll have a much better script. I normally don't have much of a script and tend to think off my head with these videos, although I generally have a topic in mind. So I will see you all next week with our kind of whiteboard discussion about relationships and questions you should ask. That will probably be a 25 to 30 minute video, just between all of the stuff that I've got to do and dealing with the setup. But okay. For the CDH Warrior, I'm Drew Monday, and I will see you next week with our whiteboard discussion on relationships, our midway point. Have a great day.